You're watching a TGM production. Hello, and welcome back to Tom Mason, The Interview, the series that takes its name from Michael Parkinson, but I'm not famous enough in the last name to be Parkinson, because obviously Mason is also a first name, if you didn't know that. Um, I did,
I
and
did
I'm
not
glad
know
I
that.
did. I'm glad I did. And so we've got more interviews in the pipeline, which is nor a pipe or a line, but we shall crack on. My guest today is best known for appearing on one of the longest podcasts to have a name and very short and hard to Google, because you have to remember how to spell it. It's the one and only Lou Conran.
Yay! Thanks for having me, Tom.
So we shall start at the very beginning because Julie Andrews once said it was a good place to start. She
Yep.
was correct. How did you get into the world I like to call ha 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 comedy?
Oh, well, I did a bit of acting beforehand, and then I was always told off at drama school for trying to be funny. And then I was like, well, that's what I want to do. And they were like, no, no, you can't be funny at drama school. So then when I left drama school, I started doing like comedy workshops and things. And what I found out was that I could do the performance, but I couldn't do the writing.
Yeah.
Um, and then I gave that up, the idea of that up. And then many years later, I'd written a kind of a sitcom thing with my friend,
Mm.
and that got taken on by a production company. And then we were having a meeting in Manchester. This is a very long-winded answer, but basically, we had the meeting, and then my friend in the middle of the meeting said, "I don't want to do this anymore." I know, helpful. Whilst we were in the middle of a comedy club, and yeah, and then the night sort of started around us, and then I thought, oh well, I'm clearly not going to make a sitcom anymore. So so I stayed and watched the comedy, and then I was like, oh well, I can do better than this, and that's how it all started, which was many, many, many years ago.
And I think that all good careers start off with the words, I think I can do better than that. Yeah, that looks really rubbish. I can do better than that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Very highly confident I was
yeah,
at that, and then I started doing comedy,
yeah,
and suddenly realised, ooh, it's not as easy as you think it is.
yeah. Yeah, it's easy to think about comedy rather than do it.
Yeah,
But a lot of people do it. Some people do it better than others,
exactly.
and so
Hmm.
that's why it's a career choice. But you mentioned there about going to drama school. Even though it does exist in some form, I always think there should be a comedy school, which is for people that want to do comedy in acting, not just drama, because it all just sounds a little bit too serious when you think of let's go
Yeah,
to drama school. No, I just want to laugh about. I want to be the next insert name of current famous comedy actor. That.
yeah.
Uh, why do you think that drama schools? Why do you think there's not an alternative to like a drama like a comedy school? Why do you think that doesn't exist?
It probably doesn't exist because it'd be a complete waste of time. Because I think you'd have so many people thinking
Yeah,
that they were funny,
yeah,
um, and you probably wouldn't learn anything because people would be just trying to outdo each other all
yeah,
the time.
yeah,
And yeah, it probably would end up like that. It'd
yeah,
just be a mess, Tom, I think.
yeah,
So it's probably
yeah,
wise there isn't. Some universities do stand up
yeah.
courses, don't they? In
Yeah,
there,
they do.
yeah.
So Salford used to do it, and then I found out they dissolved it. They got rid of it. Apparently it doesn't exist. I googled it. Apparently it doesn't exist.
Oh,
The one
really?
that Peter Kay is most famous for, well, not most famous for, but famous in certain circles. Apparently it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, right. Oh, that's interesting because I knew a few people that taught that. Maybe it was because they were teaching it. Maybe maybe that's why it doesn't exist anymore.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think that as you mentioned there about if you did have a comedy school, people would outdo each other. I think it would be the largest game ever of Last One Laughing.
Yeah.
Just people trying to outdo each other.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which is that's an awful joke. Anyway, but one of the things you've done in your career that it's I would say, and I know this hasn't been mentioned in this loop, but there's a selection of shows that were around that time, not in the same, probably not in the same year, but in that sort of like bubble of time frame when you had like Biker Grove and Grange Hill that were the others that where you could pinpoint certain actors and go, oh, it's them from such a thing, and they're now famous because they've gone on or they've decided to quit acting like Ant and Dec. Which
Yeah.
if you decide what you think about that. But what was it like working on the very much interested in a sense of it's incredible, but it's one of the few out of the list of programs I mentioned that the entirety is available on ITVX and that a few episodes premiered on or aired is a better word for it on the TV channel That's TV and possibly
Oh.
That's TV too, which are channels that just air 4 episodes of something and then get rid of it and put Benidorm back on. But what because it's like 4 episodes of Grange Hill and then they're playing
Right.
12 episodes of Benidorm or Till Death Us Do Part. But what was it like working on Stephen Moffat's incredible series, The Press of Gang?
Oh, Tom, I was beside myself when I got told I was going to be in the news team for that. It was one of my favorite programs when I was growing up. Obviously, you're about 12. So how old are you actually?
I'm 21. I'm
Are
12
you?
backwards.
12
Yeah.
backwards, yeah, yeah. But so back in today, it was my favorite program on telly.
Yeah.
And then so I was at stage school when I was little, and
Yeah.
then when we all auditioned for it, I didn't automatically get cast in the news team,
Mm.
because I made a fool of myself on the audition, and hadn't realised that all of the auditions that we did, all of the cast would be watching them after we'd done them,
Yeah.
and I made a big thing in my audition about fancying Dexter Fletcher and how fit he was and how amazing he was and blah blah blah. And so then I found out I wasn't cast in the news team. I was really
Mm.
upset. And then when somebody dropped out and they went, oh, go on, you can go in, then I soon realized why I hadn't been cast. It's because they'd all the cast had watched the tapes, and I was basically the press gang news team joke, basically, which it's memorable, isn't it? Gets you known, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, but it was the best time. I had such a brilliant time there. It was just a dream, really, to do
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And why do you think that shows like Press Gang, Biker Grove, and Granger, why do you think those were the sort of well known for children, ignoring teen shows, but why were they the big ones that helped like give big stars their first? But why do you think they were the ones to do that? Why do you think no other shows were doing that type of thing where now
Mhm.
you can think of like 40 famous people that were in one of those shows and they're now like global famous in America?
I think probably because there was limited things to watch when you were a kid. So and Press Gang like has got this kind of cult status about it, but it was like for everybody that thought they were an adult that
Yeah,
wasn't an adult, it gave them the opportunity to behave like an adult. And
yeah,
I think that that's probably where the what's the word? I'm menopausal, Tom. I can't think of words. That's where the sort of like where people sort of related to it.
yeah,
So and I think, as I said, this because it was limited. There was Grange Hill, but this
yeah,
was up from Grange Hill. This was
yeah,
like for the older people, yeah,
yeah,
just going to like sixth form college
yeah,
and all of that, doing that. And I think that's why it was like
yeah.
universally just sort of like fitted in with people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if Saved by the Bell became British. Um,
Yeah,
which is when you look at the images and then you look at the images of Saved by the Bell, you can sort of see the
totally, Tom,
very much
totally.
similarities. But when you look back on the fact that Preston is like beloved and beloved to an extent where people are still watching it on ITVX, why do you think that people now are still going back and watching it? Is it because that it's one of those shows where it still feels relevant because there is some because that even though the press isn't the same as it once was, it still exists. Do you think that that's why it's still relatable to newer audiences or older audiences that want to revisit their beloved show?
I think it's just the nostalgia part of it, isn't it? That's certainly for me. It's like I used to look at Julius Wali Ali Alia, the Alia, and used to look at her outfits, and it was just like I want to be her. I want to, and to go back and revisit that, because it was so adult at the time. As an adult now, although some would disagree that I am, um, uh, watching it now, like what was really important to us back then is now seems really trivial. But I think it's just that nostalgia thing, isn't it? Really, of going back and revisiting the good old days,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah, and I think that what's the issue is when you watch those shows, you can sort of see the sort of grown up aspect of like if you, for example, the one I could think of off the top of my head is drugs on Grange Hill and those type of like mature subjects that you would now mainly see on shows like Skins, which are
Mm-hmm.
E4, which isn't for children, definitely not for children. But why do you think that those sort of issues aren't covered as like widely on children's TV as they once were?
Probably because it's well, I don't know. That's a really good question, Tom. I don't know. I think probably because it's probably gone beyond that now, isn't it? Kids have all got knives at school. It's like, oh yeah, back in the day we just did a bit of pot, but now it's like kids are taking knives to school. It's gone a bit too serious, hasn't it? And
Yeah,
I think maybe it's I don't know. Maybe I don't have kids, so I can't relate to that in any way, shape, or form. But I'm imagining that it's probably just because it just fall on deaf ears and yeah, I
yeah,
don't know. I think there's probably bigger issues to deal with, isn't
yeah.
there?
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the children landscape now, I think the dumping ground is the only one until quite recently used to still tackle the tricky subjects. Like they had one child that was had an abusive family and then wouldn't want to move to the care home and then they were very very dirty, like more dirty than pigs, and they had to obviously try and wash them. But it's like that was like the at one point or another that was the height of it because children like care home drama became the catalyst. And
Yeah.
do you think that those type of shows were a good training ground? So every time you were in it, do you think that you learned more about your ability of acting because you like bounce off other younger people?
No, I don't. Because I used to turn up, get told to stand over there, carry that bit of paper over there.
Yeah.
And then at lunchtime, we'd go to the pub, have a couple of pints, and then we'd come back and then get told to stand over there and do that. So I wasn't learning anything apart from don't drink and drive. And that's all I learned, Tom. I hate to ruin your image of this world, but it was basically just do what you're told. And then you're standing in this room with all these people that you've watched on telly, and you're like, it's Dexter Fletcher, it's Julius Wally, Ali, Ali, Alia. So you're a bit sort of in awe of it, really. So
Yeah.
I can't say I learned anything on that program, Tom, other than I learned how to drink Guinness.
Yeah, and moving swiftly away from that, one of the things you've done, and it's on the list of shows for the radio that you sort of feel, and this is mainly because of the person that hosted this, you feel more excited about the show than you would see on TV. So if you Would I Lie to You, you wouldn't get Rob Brydon screaming at the top of his lungs, "Would I lie to you?"
Mm.
But on this, Sarah Millican does. What was it like being a guest on the brilliant Elephant in the Room?
Well, I've known Sarah for very many years, and she's a very good friend of mine. So it was just like having a little chat with my mate. So and I was just very lucky enough to that she gave me the opportunity to be a part of that. So it was great fun. It was brilliant, and it was really nice to be with women as well, because that's very rare that you get more than one woman on a panel. I mean, it's getting a bit better
Yeah.
now, but a bit better. But yeah, so that was like I think it was three women and one man, which still doesn't happen, but should do. But yeah, it was great fun. It was really good.
Yeah, and I do think that it is because what I like about radio shows is because there's not any visual aspect to it, and you haven't got the words on the screen. Yeah, so I liked it how when the music's playing, she then just says, "It's elephant in the room," and it's just like a lot more joyful than you would have on like Mock the Week or something. Dara Reid's
Yeah.
not as much, hasn't got as much energy, which sort
No.
of says a lot. But why do you think there's more panel shows on radio than there is on the television?
I don't know really. I suppose it's because there's you're catering for a different audience. The Radio 4 audience is slightly different to your mainstream telly. And also it's but you can sort of like visualize it more.
Yeah,
So as you said, you don't have the words, you don't have the action on the screen. And I would guess your Radio 4 audiences are sitting down with a glass of sherry or a cup of tea,
yeah,
reading their book with Radio 4 in the background, using their imaginations instead of having it all done for them on the telly. I
yeah,
don't I don't know really. God, you're very good at
yeah.
this, Tom.
I am. Um, and what's interesting is you mentioned now what the average Radio 4 listener is, and you always think of them as this like really posh, really a little bit like, oh yes, I listen to Radio 4. But when you listen to the comedy on Radio 4, you think, yeah, I definitely don't think that the posh audience that we're all thinking are definitely listening to that. There's definitely a different audience because it's a lot more well, I wouldn't say immature. Well, I would say immature. It's a lot more gag heavy, less like, oh yes, the government are
Yeah.
doing this, all percentages and this and that. It's more, oh look at that, isn't that funny? Ha ha ha. And do you think that having lots of comedy on the radio rather than TV, do you think that sort of helps to sort of develop the aspects of comedy that isn't showcased on broadcast media as much as it is on the stage?
Yeah, definitely. Because Radio 4, um, quite a lot of comedians have had their first series or their first outing on Radio 4. And that's kind of where they test to see whether there's a thirst for you
Yeah,
as a comedian. And it's brilliant. And Radio 4, there's something for everyone. So
yeah,
you get your intellectual political comedy programs, and
yeah,
then you get your sort of, I wouldn't say lower level, but
yeah,
you know your other extreme programs. So
yeah,
yeah, and it's a great platform for people to just try stuff. It's brilliant. I know a lot of people that have had series on the radio that have then gone on to be brilliant TV series, and then they've gone on to do other things. So it's a brilliant springboard, really.
yeah. And I think that that's what's really good about radio is that when you watch, let's say, like League of Gentlemen, you can see that where they found what didn't really work in their opinion and gone, well, we need to improve on that because they've had that time to play about. And do you think that that's the issue with comedy on TV is that the people aren't giving them enough time to play about with it. So if I've got a series on it and the channel's like, oh, I don't really like that, they're not giving them the time to go and fix that and alter it and make sure that it's even better.
We live in a generation of everything's fast, isn't it? We just want everything now and immediate. And I think one of the problems with the TV comedy now is that generally it's always the same people that are on,
Yeah,
so that you're not really giving a wider audience the chance to maybe see other comedians that they
yeah,
haven't seen before. So I think there is a lot of that, a lot of repetition. And certainly I hear a lot of people go, oh, it's always the same people on telly.
yeah,
But also, with, like, especially like live at the Apollo, you can go and do your set there, but they'll edit it in a way that you
yeah,
would never want it to be. I mean, I've never done it, so I don't know. But from talking to chums of mine that have,
yeah,
it's like they've taken the joke away from this, and this because they're editing it to pander to the audience
yeah,
as opposed to what it should be comedically. So I think there's a bit of yeah, I don't think telly is necessarily helpful for comedy
yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and you hear that I heard that on Britain's Got Talent, the I don't know what I'm gonna call him. Let's call him an actor. Philip Green, who was in Pickle Storm on Series C, he was on Britain's Got Talent and he did a lot of impressions.
Mm.
His most famous one, I think, is Natalie Cassidy. And but what he had said when he talked about it afterwards on whatever he was doing, they'd like edited it so it was all in a different order.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
when he watched it back, he's like, well, I did that last. I did that first, and then you sort of think, why do you think that when you have stuff where you have a lot going on and you need that person to be on it like for 3 or 4 minutes, why do you think that they edit it so that it's in a different order than it should have been in the first place?
Because I don't think the editors of those programs are comedy aware, and I don't think they know how to enhance somebody's performance. And I do think there's a lot, especially with Britain's Got Talent, there's a lot of the time they are trying to evoke a negative response from an audience.
Yeah,
So they get the extreme like booing or the
yeah,
cheering or whatever, and they do it deliberately. And I know a lot of quite a few people, comedians that have been on there and um, thought they had a really good time, and then
yeah,
it's been edited and shown, and then they come across looking like they've never done that before, and
yeah,
it's ruined quite a few people's comedy careers, which is why I would advise as a comedian, never do it. It's horrendous. They edit you deliberately badly.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's all in the edit really. And as I said, those editors either know what they're doing deliberately to get a
yeah,
reaction or have no comedic
yeah.
experience whatsoever.
Yeah, and you mentioned the booing there, and I do think that that's sort of like you're allowed to have a negative opinion. I mean,
Mm,
and so the booing just really annoys me because it's like you want to hear what the judges are thinking. They're the experts. You can't be like going boo because they've just said
yeah.
I didn't really like that. That wasn't great, and then woo because they've said but that was great. Do you think
Mm.
that that sort of like gives the performer like what's the word I'm looking for? It makes them feel not great because the audience are just trying to make it sound like it was worse than it was meant.
Yeah, I think what I have been told is that there's like a floor manager in the audience for people, and I think the audience are told if one person starts booing, you all start booing.
Yeah,
If one person starts applauding, you all start applauding.
yeah,
So it's kind of like a herd mentality, really. So, regardless of you as the audience in that room, regardless of what you genuinely think,
yeah,
you're encouraged to follow the herd. And sometimes the floor manager will start that booing and will
yeah,
start that round of applause. So
yeah,
you just have to do, and it's all planned, Tom. It's
yeah.
all you know, it's all planned. So don't do it. It's horrendous. It'll
Yeah.
ruin your life unless you win. But
Yeah, and if you do quite well on Britain's Got Talent, it means you could go on the Got Talent circuit because there's quite a few people from Britain's Got Talent that did Germany's Got Talent, did no, because like the Vingo, the high vis
Vigo,
jacket, Vigo
Vigo
Vem,
Vem.
that's the
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
He obviously won Britain's Got Talent, then went on to Norwegian's Got Talent and well, he got to the semi-finals.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and then went on to Norwegian's Strictly Come Dancing because he's that well known now.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a brilliant comedian.
yeah,
He's a
he is.
brilliant comedian.
He is.
He's in a double act, and they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
So it worked for him. It
yeah,
worked for him.
yeah. Him and John Richardson are the most famous people in high vis jackets at the moment. Because obviously John Richardson doing the Channel 4 show where he
Yeah,
now
yeah.
just has the high vis jacket in his boot to look like he's always doing work. But one of the things you do that quite a lot of people, like quite a lot of comedians do because it's sort of it's a good thing. It helps the show that they're doing it for, but it also gives you a new audience to find your work. What's it like doing warm up for television programs?
Ooh, that's a very different ball game. Because you're thinking on your feet constantly, especially if it's like a game show. I did a lot
Yeah,
on 100K drop. Um and you're constantly on, you're constantly
yeah,
thinking. It's really exhausting because you have to do the warm up before Davina comes out, then Davina comes out,
yeah,
and then it's like, okay, let's get the applause going for the contestants. And then the nature of that game is if they answer a question wrong, all the money that's in front of them drops to the floor. So then you have to go back on while all the security people come out to
yeah,
reload all of the money. So some people will come out and they'll answer 10 questions, and then I'll get a break of like 10 minutes.
yeah.
But then somebody will come out, answer one question wrong. Then it's like, oh God. So you're constantly having to
Yeah,
think. But I did a bit of warm up for loose women. Um, and uh, and that's live,
yeah,
so you're it's just your job just to get them going at the beginning and then
yeah,
step in the ad break. So that's the live TV is fairly easier,
yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
Yeah, but you're constantly on, and at
Yeah.
the end of the day it's exhausting.
Yeah. And do you think it's hard to do, and this isn't supposed to be mean to loose women, but do you think it's hard to do warm up for loose women because the topics they talk about are so bizarre? It's hard for you to come up with things that are equally as funny because you know they're going to talk about, are aliens really real, or is there an alien living in my wardrobe? Why do you think that loose women's the hardest of the live shows to do warm up for? Or do you think it's easier because the
um,
audience know that it's going to be quite bizarre what they're going to see?
I think it's probably easier because there's so many of them. There's a panel of what is it, five of them, and then they sort of talk amongst themselves. And
Yeah,
if there is a ridiculous topic, then that gives you perfect fodder to go into the audience to ask them what they think. So it's
yeah,
probably easier. The more bizarre, the better, I'd
yeah,
say.
yeah. And do you think why do you think that Loose Women is since it's lost its on? Do you think that it's suffered in its quality, or do you think that the show is still as what it was before?
I don't watch it, Tom. So so
Neither
I
do I.
can't I can't answer that
Yeah,
question. I only watch it when when I was doing warm up.
yeah,
So I don't know. It's I'm a bargain hunt woman,
yeah,
Tom. I
yeah.
prefer bargain hunt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think Bargain Hunt's one of those shows where you hear celebrities say, "Oh, I love it." It's my favorite bit is they did uh it must have been a special for doctors, the soap doctors, and the people that were on it said it was my favorite program of all time, and I've always wanted to do it. They're like proper actors, and they're
Yeah.
like really obsessed with. It's like next week, you know it. Well, our next gonna be fan of Bargain Hunt. It's about a John Bishop, so who knows? Um, but I do think that Bargain Hunt is quite comical because you could do all sorts of parodies with Bargain
hmm
Hunt,
hmm
and you can also do sketches on Dickinson's Real Deal because he does have the same fake tan as Donald Trump. Um, but one of the other things you've worked on that equally is as brilliant as everything. Um, but what was it like working on 2009's, which is the year it came out, Mark's brilliant blog?
Oh my God. Wow. God, you really go back into the depths here, Tom. From memory, I think it was really good fun. Yeah, we were just in a housing estate in Manchester. Um, yeah, that was good fun because I did it with quite a few people I already knew. So
Yeah,
it wasn't like a job really. It was just mucking about. So
yeah,
yeah, that was brilliant.
yeah. And do you think that when you work on something where you know at least one person, do you think that that makes the job easier because you sort of as you perform in it, you know what they're like in a certain way, so you
Mhm.
easily be able to bounce off them, and then because you know them, you know that the rest of the cast will be easier to bounce around with.
Yeah, in an ideal world, that's exactly how it would go. Yeah, yeah. 9 times out of 10, that's great. If you feel more comfortable, if you know people that you're working with, yeah, it makes it
Yeah,
easier.
yeah. And one of the most recent, yeah, yeah, definitely recent. One of the most recent you've worked on that I think for a certain generation, and I can't work out what age range it is due to the fact that I've sort of get confused with how old someone would be in 2015. Because obviously I started high school in 2015, so
Oh my God.
I stopped paying attention of who was of what programs people watching that were younger than me. So when you ask them, it's whether or not they know that they know what you're on about. But it came back not so long after it sadly came to an end. But what was it like working on the sequel to So Awkward? Still so awkward.
That was great fun. Yeah, that was great fun. When was
I think it was like 2021-ish.
Yeah, yeah. So that was great to actually be allowed to go to work.
Yeah,
I was considered a key worker for my very important role there,
yeah,
Tom. That was great fun. And
yeah,
again, I knew people on it. So it was, yeah, that was brilliant. I had so
yeah.
much fun doing that. And it's great because you're just, you're in wardrobe and you're helping to choose what you're going to look like. And it's, yeah, it was brilliant. That was a great day. That was brilliant.
But I do think that it's one of those shows that has a very fascinating legacy to it. Because obviously, once you find out that Nicholas and her son used to be in the original version, you then go, wow, you can tell where the genius of brilliance was. and you could tell that Nicholas Lyndhurst definitely was an actor in his genes. Well, he probably did wear jeans as well. Um, very poor joke. But why do you think that it's important that shows like that exist still on children's TV?
Because it's real, and
Yeah,
it covers topics that ordinarily wouldn't be covered, and it just is a bit of escapism for children, isn't it?
yeah,
Really, it's easy to just switch that on. I guess, like with the press gang thing, it's
yeah,
like it's relatable and it's escapism, and I think that is really important, especially nowadays when you've got kids just constantly on social media and all of that, and that's hard for, I think, for those generations growing up with all of that. I would not have relished that in my day. I think kids have it 20 million times harder
yeah,
growing up these days because of all of the pressure from social media as well. So I guess telly programs give you an escapism. That
yeah.
was a very long-winded answer,
Yeah,
Tom,
yeah,
sorry.
that's right. But I think that what's really interesting is because a lot of children's shows that are still ongoing from when you're a child, a lot of if you, I don't know if it's still the case in some aspects, but a lot of people still watch them because it's like you watch it as a child and you're gonna obviously you're gonna stop watching it when it ends because you want to feel like you've watched something from start to finish. Like a lot of older people are still watching current Blue Peter as a
Mm,
very great example. But I think what's really interesting about So Awkward and Still So Awkward and all its various iterations is that when when I was in high school, the actors were a similar age to me in
yeah.
So Awkward, and then by Still So Awkward, even though they're slightly older, I was nearly at that bit where I was going to university.
Hmm.
So watching
Hmm.
that, you sort of, even though it's very light-hearted and comedy and not very serious at all, you sort of still get the aspect of you feel a connection. Do you think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that's why doing sequel series of a school-based show works so well because some of the actors may be similar ages to the audience that are viewing it?
I guess so, yeah. I think just to, yeah, you grow up with them, don't you? So
Yeah,
it's kind of like you feel like that person's your friend, even though they're on the telly. But
yeah,
then you have a keen interest in finding out how their life progresses and whether it sort of matches anything you're going through. So
yeah.
yeah.
And one of the things you've done that I think at the moment is in a boom as it's always developing in medium and it's always developing in the sense of what are the rules of that? How did you get started in the world? Because you've done several, probably so you've probably done less than who you would consider having the most amount. But how did you get into the world of podcasting?
Oh, well, that came about because me and my friend Sally, um, we'd go to Lidl, we'd buy a bottle of wine,
Yeah.
and then we'd of an evening we'd sort of FaceTime and have a glass of wine together. And then we just decided that if we turned our chats over a glass of wine into a podcast, the wine would then be tax deductible. So that's how that came about. And then it was quite good timing, really. So the
Yeah.
guests that we managed to get on were brilliant. And we've sort of rested Spit or Swallow now because we sort of feel like it's come to a natural end. But we are working on a new one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was mostly based on wine, Tom, and wanting to find a way to not pay for it. That's what that was born
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. And why do you think that the podcast genre is developing at such a fast rate now?
Well, because you're in control of what your narrative, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're in charge of it, and you don't have any gatekeepers like the BBC or other
Yeah.
telly channels telling you what you can and cannot do. And there's something for everybody out there. I mean, it's podcasts are so oversaturated now, so I think people are trying to think of what's the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Um, which is a good thing. And then it's, that's why sort of telly at the moment, because people are just doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's making people work harder, work
Mm.
better.
Yeah.
And so the audience is like hungry for it. And as I said, something for everyone. So
Yeah.
it's great. I love doing podcasts. Oh, sorry, I just got an email then really loudly. Sorry, did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, right.
Um,
Sorry.
yeah. Yeah. And I think that what's interesting about you say that podcasts are like oversaturated. But now what's happening is you get like Dragon's Den is now a podcast, Sunday Brunch is now a podcast, Graham
Mm.
Norton's podcast, and Channel 4's YouTube comedy channel thing, whatever we want to call it, is now also a podcast.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah, so
right.
so most of Channel 4's output that was comedy or serious or whatever the Channel 4.0 is, is all now podcasts available on Spotify because Spotify does video. And it wouldn't be a great podcast if you couldn't see what was going on. But do you think that having big corporations like the production team behind Dragon's Den and Graham Norton, do you think that's harming podcasting for the the 12-year-olds or the 16-year-old that want to have a go at getting into talking or creating?
No, not at all. I think because kids these days are so ingenious, they know better how to work technology. They can knock something up in seconds.
Yeah,
Whereas, and you they've proved that you don't need big production companies and big money behind stuff. So I don't think it's harming it at all. If anything, I just think production companies have just got an excess of money that they need to
yeah,
throw at stuff to make it look like they're doing something to
yeah,
justify them still being here. So
yeah.
yeah, I think it's a good thing because it encourages you
And
people.
we've mentioned earlier about how some radio shows turn into TV shows. And what's fascinating is I think that's happening within podcasts. There's a New Zealand podcast which is about well, it's a drama. I think it's a comedy about a bloke trying to solve a murder, but it's like
Right.
it's all accidental. And I now can't think of the name, but one of the one of the famous people that are still acting from The Good Life, I can't think of her name. It's not Penelope Keith. She's too busy looking at stately homes.
Felicity
Um,
Kendall.
Felicity Kendall, yeah,
Yeah.
she's about to appear in the TV version of that
Oh.
podcast,
Oh, right.
uh, which is well, I didn't realize she was still acting because she probably does more stage stuff than anything else. But do you think that that's a good thing that podcasters that are creating narrative podcasts are getting the same opportunities as they would if they had put that podcast on the radio?
Oh, definitely. The more the merrier, really. It's like if you want to um because some when you're driving, especially if the narrative form, it's like nice to have like a story to listen to, isn't it? I think yeah, I think it's brilliant. The more diverse the better, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, it can, as I said, it can only grow and breed
yeah,
and get
yeah,
bigger and bigger, and then it just makes people think better, I
yeah.
suppose.
Or as Take That would say, things can only get better.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so throughout your career, you worked on a lot of things, but what was it like writing on an episode of, and this is, I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but of the show What You Wrote, series three, on the third series of it?
Gosh, you've done your research. Um, what was it like? Well, I just submitted a sketch, Tom. So
Yeah,
they just put it out, just go, right. If you want to throw in some sketches, then please do. So I was sending in sketches every week, and then one week I just got lucky. So it wasn't like we were all sat around in a room, you just sitting at home, just trying to be funny.
yeah,
And fortunately, I think was it one or two sketches? I can't really remember. It's a long time ago, but
yeah,
yeah, that's great to do something like that because that gives the wider. If you're not known in radio or
yeah,
writing circles, it gives people the opportunity to have a go at it, and you get a credit, which is
yeah.
always good.
Yeah, and do you think that it helps because it might be someone's first credit and it means that they're on a ladder where some doors that were blocked to them due to needing a credit can now
Yeah,
be
yeah,
opened? Do you think that's helped
yeah.
you personally?
Has it? I suppose it has in a way. Yeah, it did help me get onto a BBC scheme. I did BBC Comedy Room
Yeah,
writers scheme for a year, and I think you needed a credit for that, so that would have helped me get on that, and that was a brilliant experience. Going to London every month and sitting around with sort of like-minded people, just given different projects, and at the end of it, it was like you're introduced to all these production companies and all
yeah,
these executives. So it was yeah. So yeah, I suppose it did help. Yeah.
yeah. Because you do get that thing. There is certain, and I recently read it. And I can't remember what it's called now. But there's certain like competitions where like you win a bursary of X amount of money to not to develop your idea that you've done, but to develop further ideas, and you need certain amount of credits. You know, that sort of breaks, like, sort of makes a boundary, even though it looks from the outside, oh, that would be a good idea for such a body because they want to get into it. But then when you a block barrier, do you think that sort of like stops people from pursuing that career because they know that if they want to they want that money to be able to do whatever, they have to find other ways to be able to get that credit. Do you think that sort of like blocks it for them?
I don't know whether it necessarily blocks it or it just makes you think outside the box. I think it depends on very much on how you look at it, really. So there's always a way round things, but
Yeah,
it's just sort of finding those ways, isn't it,
yeah.
really? And if
And
you really want it, then you'll go for it, won't you? And you'll find a way. So
yeah. And with the online world being so massive and so broad, and you get like Stevie Martin, for example, being really, really, really brilliant online, and then taking that to the extra world of TV and all this. Do you think that the online world will eventually become like a credit, if you will, if you've done X, if you've got X amount of views in a certain time frame, that would allow you into these places? You think that that will become the new if you've had something on the radio?
I think it already has, hasn't it? Because there's lots of TikTokers and YouTubers that are now on reality TV programs. I think there's lots of opportunities given to people that are online that many, many years ago wouldn't have even been taken seriously. And so I think what we're certainly being told in this industry is like the more followers you have and the more views you have,
Yeah,
the more you're going to get on. But when I first started, it was if you're funny, you
yeah,
will get on. So it's now all about the followers. It's all about the views. So I think that's a different way in, and
yeah.
a lot of people are getting to where they want to get to quicker because of that.
Yeah, and do you think that's because TV are trying to, no, and radio, but radio's more of a floaty type thing because it could be anything these days. But mainly, do you think that's because TV want more people to tune into that program, so they need to get
Yeah.
someone that audience that they're trying to target, like your BBC traditional audience, and they want like say like that person that's done X amount of things on the internet now. We need them on that program because we want that to be the next traitors.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's why they put TikTokers on up the jungle. What's it called?
Yeah,
Celebrity Get Me Out of Here.
yeah,
And I think there's, they haven't they got YouTubers or TikTokers on Strictly Come Dancing as well. So they are trying to get that
yeah,
audience over. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that the companion series to I'm a Celebrity should be called Up the Jungle. Up the
Yeah.
Jungle with Joe Thomas.
I
Um,
always call it Up the Jungle because I can
yeah,
never remember because the title's so bloody long. As
yeah,
always, it just should be Up the Jungle.
yeah. It's even worse when you're in Australia because it's I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here, Australia.
Oh, it's
Uh, yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
And 9 out of 10 times they've got an American, really, really well-known American actor that's never heard of the program before in their life doing it.
Brilliant.
So
Brilliant.
I think he's Brian Williams from the Brady Bunch. Uh,
Oh, wow.
he did the most recent series that was pre-recorded for the Australian I'm a Celebrity that's in South Africa. Because obviously you can't have it in Australia because
No.
that's their back garden. Well, not his. His back garden's America. Um, or it might not be. I don't know where he lives. But uh, but I do think most shows need to shorten their titles. Like The Traitors, it's easy to say.
Yeah.
Married at First Sight, Australia. That's too long.
No. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
And so, as we've got to this point in the interview, a lot of people have got to know you. What advice would you give someone that's watching this who might want to get into the world of comedy?
Oh, well, now then. I would encourage you not to. There's too many people doing it. And yeah, if you're going to try and become a comedian, then please just be funny.
Yeah,
That's it, really. Wear a watch because it drives me insane when people go over their time.
yeah,
Wear a watch, learn to drive,
yeah,
write proper jokes. Don't rely on what's trending at the moment, because there's comedy sort of goes through phases of everybody's bisexual, everybody's ADHD, everybody's got this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
That's great. That's fine if that's your thing. I'm not criticizing that. But if that is your thing, then find an alternative way of telling an audience
Yeah.
that, because just be funny. That's it. Just
Yeah.
be funny.
Yeah. And I do think, and you'll probably know this as well, but I do think what's interesting is when you watch shows like BBC New Comedy Awards, and you sort of when you have a certain selection of like the judging panel, you can sort of tell what sort of acting they're going to go for. Do you think
Yeah.
that having a show like that, being so diverse, and 1 minute you could have someone telling a joke about being an ex-toilet cleaner, or you can have someone dressed as a 1940s sort of like cabaret act, and pretending they're really awful. Do you think that that sort of helps to showcase to the world that there is more than just what you sort of see on TV out there in the world of comedy?
I guess so, yeah, because it's, you're trying to, as I said earlier, there's something for everyone, isn't there?
Yeah,
So I think not, if you've got certain rules and restrictions, then you're sort of, these programs sometimes try and lead an audience into what that production company thinks that people should be watching,
yeah,
which is why, comedy online is great, because there's so much more out there than what is quite often offered on telly.
yeah. And one of the things that you've done in the past few years that every time I sort of listen to an episode, you sort of get another side of the celebrity because obviously the host asks the most stupid questions that has been quite successful, but I wouldn't have necessarily agreed that that was the right angle to go for, just in case they take a bad reaction to it, like an allergic reaction, if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
what was it like being interviewed by Richard Herring?
Oh, lovely. He's such a lovely man. Yeah, we had great. I was in a hotel in where was I? Oh, I was in Glasgow, I think, in a hotel in Glasgow. And yeah, so the line was really bad. It was like a real relief to just be able to get back and
Yeah,
talk about comedy and silly stuff. And he's such a lovely man. So yeah,
yeah,
that was great fun.
yeah. And I do think that it probably is the weirdest connection of all time between you in Press Gang and Richard Herring dating Julia Swala. Which every time you
Did he
mention,
do Julius Suala? Did
yeah,
he?
yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
he mentions
wow.
it. He mentions it too often. And I think there was some sort of I can't remember which program, but there was a gag. He kept on saying that he tried to get to go out with her in whatever program, then actually went out with her for a very brief moment of time.
Wow.
But he
Wow.
could never stop talking about it. And the best bit is that he had her on his podcast, and so you can watch him just keep on talking about the fact that they went out. He does that with Sally Phillips as well. He kept on talking about the fact that he went out with her, and she just like, oh, we're gonna talk about that again.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
Oh, Richard, what are
yeah.
you doing?
Only Richard Herring could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, only him, because who else would be able to interview his ex-partners and still get away with it? There wasn't any fights that broke out. But do you think that having someone like Richard and having those emergency questions, do you think that sort of like breaks the boundaries of like you get into new territories that you never thought you would be talking about? Like 1 minute you'd be talking about press gang, and the next minute you'd be talking about what happens if you married a fish?
Well, I guess so. That's the beauty of interviewing, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
why, like, because when I do interviews on Radio 4 Extra, um, I'm never really regimented with the questions that I
yeah,
ask, because you just don't know what's going to crop up. So I don't like to be too regimented, really.
yeah.
I like the beauty of spontaneity.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about Radio 4 Extra. What do you think makes Radio 4 Extra such a fascinating sort of like radio series? Is it because you get to re-listen to comedies you might have not heard in years, or do you think that it because it gives birth to shows that might have done not too well on Radio 4 because they're on at such a stupid, ridiculous midnight hour? Do you think that that's why Radio 4 Extra is such a vital thing to still have around?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. For exactly that reason, because if you don't have the time to listen to Radio 4, you know, for whatever reason, it sort of truncates everything and puts a nice little package in. It's like a little bit of variety, bit of pick and
Yeah,
mix for everybody. So yeah, and it does introduce people to a show that they might not necessarily have been aware of. So yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah, because one minute you can be listening to Tony Hancock, and then next minute you can be listening to Alex Horn from like 20 years ago, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's variety. And I think that what that does is that it plays comedy at a sensible hour. So listening to a comedy at like 11:30 is like at night is quite, I think, a little bit ridiculous because you're not going to get the audience that will probably listen to it on catch up. Do you think that that's a problem, or do you think that that's still a good time to have comedy on it?
I think it's really good, really, to be honest, because I think a lot of people listen to it while they're in bed, and it helps them sort of have a little listen, and it lulls them
Yeah.
into sleep. So well, hopefully not in a negative way, but it just sort of relaxes people. I
Yeah.
think a lot certainly a lot of people that I talk to about it have it on when they're in bed. So yeah, nice little bit of comedy just to send them off on their little sleepy kins.
Yeah. And do you think that it's good that there is a variety of comedy on Radio 4, not just panel shows, but there's also sitcoms and spoofs of things that you think about would be brilliant, like Human Watch by Marilyn Robinson would be brilliant on TV, but it's such an excellent concept. Do you think that that's why it is still thriving and that's why there is
Mm.
still that audience? Because newer comedians, I'm not saying that Marilyn Robinson is new, but newer to the broadcast media world can go, I've got this idea, let me stretch my wings.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's brilliant. It's a great platform, and it's yeah, as I keep repeating, it's really boring, but there's something for everyone,
Yeah,
which is brilliant. So yeah, long live Radio 4. That's what
yeah.
I say.
And and if comedy had its own logo, which it never would, the tagline under it was, "It's for everyone." In comedy, in whatever comical font you can think of, the one I use a lot is Mickey Mouse. I think it's called. It's got now to do with Disney. It's just a little bit quirky, and if you
Yeah.
write the word Mickey Mouse, it looks rather comical. So the font people decided let's call it Mickey Mouse. Um, and obviously they've not been sued yet. Even 24 hours after this, they'll be soon. And why do you personally love working and presenting Radio 4 Extra?
Oh, because you're just in a room with a microphone, you've got your producer, and you've got free reign to tell your stories, to say what you want to say. Obviously, limited,
Yeah,
but it certainly for me, because I'm quite rude on stage,
yeah,
and but with Radio 4 stuff I can't be, and I
yeah,
have to think differently, and I love the challenge of coming up with different ways of describing things or telling a story without
yeah,
being rude, which is quite unusual for me, but I
yeah,
really enjoy it. So yeah, I just love telling the story, and
yeah.
I always imagine who's at home listening and what they're doing, and yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I think that's what's fascinating when you're in that situation where your stage persona is a little bit like of a different audience than what you would be listening to. So a lot of comedians in the early days that were on The Dog Ate My Homework, a lot of them when you watch them on stage might be effing and jeffing and saying something quite inappropriate but quite hilarious, but then they have to try and like alter the personality.
Mm.
Do you think that that's strengthened you as a comedian because you now know you can go into any situation and easily be able to adapt because you've done that so many times. You know, oh, that joke still works if I just swap that word for a gentler
Yeah.
word.
I don't know. I don't know whether that works with me completely. Yeah, I've done kids shows, which I
Yeah,
never thought I'd do.
yeah,
And a lot of people have said to me, "You're doing kids shows," but you do have to think differently. And banging a fart joke, kids love that.
yeah,
So it does make you think differently. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm adaptable for every
yeah.
situation, but I'd jolly well give it a go, Tom.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned there that kids like fart jokes. Last week on The Apprentice, we learned that the kids were not happy with reading a book about
Oh
poo
yeah.
just endlessly. Because
I saw that. I saw that on Gogglebox, and I was like, "Oh, no, that's that." It went
yeah,
a book about poo,
yeah,
and all the kids were like, "Oh no, we're not
yeah.
having that."
With the
Oh
fact that it
no.
was edited in that way, of like you could, if you could imagine tumbleweed,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is what you would get.
Mm,
Um, and with doing kids, because you mentioned about doing kids shows, because you're mainly aimed at a more mature audience, shall we say? Because obviously the audience ages vary depending on what building you're in. But do you think that it's harder to adapt for children because you've got to find a ground where the children will understand, but it's not too patronizing on them?
Yeah, well, I think the thing, Tom, is that I get on really well with kids because I
Yeah,
am an idiot. So I relate to children
yeah,
quite well. So take away the effing and the jeffing. Um, yeah, I think I'd be great as a kids performer,
yeah,
but a liability. That's what I would
yeah,
say, Tom. Yeah, I
yeah,
think I always talk to kids like they're just normal people.
yeah,
I don't talk down to them
yeah.
because yeah, I've been caught out before when I spoke to this person who I thought was about 8 years old, and I was like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And she was like, I'm 13. I was like, okay, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Oops.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And a lot of people, when you ask that question, what would you be when you're on there? Oh, an astronaut or a fireman, and someone says, "Well, that's not possible." Well, every job's possible because at least someone does it.
yeah,
That's the thing I learned quite recently that even if you say I want to be this, that, the other, it is a possible. If you can think it, someone's got that job.
yeah,
Well, you're
exactly.
obviously not a
Yeah, yeah,
superhero.
yeah.
You can't be
We're all
Spider-Man.
we're all superheroes in our own little way, Tom.
Yeah. But I would be concerned if you started firing out webs out your face. It'd be quite concerning.
Yeah.
Seek medical help. Um, and so a lot of comedians, not a lot, but two I can think of. There's probably more. Phil Ellis and I'm gonna say it wrong. Olaf Falafel.
Mhm.
Um, which I probably mispronounced like it's no one's business. He's got too many letters in his name. And they're
Olaf
doing
Falafel.
yeah.
Olaf Falafel. Yeah.
They've done or are doing kids shows. Why do you think that it's become a trend for well-known comedians to do shows for kids? Is it because they get to show a different aspect of themselves, or is it because it's a lot more you get a better audience?
Um, I think well with Phil's show, it he was playing to the adults and the kids were a bonus. So I think um and Olaf. So I've not seen Olaf's show, but I don't know. I think if you're a particular sort of style of performer, then you can get away with it. I think people maybe that the success of their shows is because I don't know about Olaf, but with Phil's show, it's you don't expect him to be able to do an entire kids show,
Yeah,
and that's where his audience came from was his
yeah,
people to go and see the carnage, and actually because he is a massive child, the kids related to it. So I suppose it was sort of the success of that was a surprise, I suppose,
yeah,
but not entirely. But yeah, if you're a massive child yourself, then it's going to be easy for you, I
yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, and do you think that having those children's songs, do you think that brings back sort of the act of clowning? Because I know that there's you can probably name quite a few comedians that went to the said famous clown school in I'm gonna say France, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think
Gaulier,
yeah?
yeah.
But do you think that having a children's show helps bring back that clownness because you need to be more visual with it. You need to be more less. Oh, I went to the pub and drank some whiskey. Oh, we went everywhere. You need to be less that, more, ooh, more Krusty the
Mm.
Clown.
I don't know. I think clowning is very difficult, Tom. Very difficult. When I was at the drama school, I did clowning, and it's you can't just pull a funny face and hope to get away with it, although you can, because that's what I do.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I suppose all comedy's clowning in its own little way, though, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
carning's not as scary as you see on the films. Um,
No, well,
no,
some
no.
people are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that when you hear the word clown, you think of it, or at one point, I don't know where it came from, but apparently there was a rumor going around at my school that there was a war between the humans and the clowns. I don't know where that
Oh,
began from, but apparently it was a local war that was gonna break out in Rochdale. Why? I don't
oh,
know.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, right. Oh, don't go to Rochdale
yeah, I don't
if
know.
you've got a phobia of clowns.
Yeah, I don't know who was going to start that, but apparently that was the rumor that was knocking about. It lasted all of 4 minutes, but
Great,
there was
great.
the rumor nonetheless. You had to get all the not too bright kids to spread that rumor. That was that was your slight problem. But do you think that clowning helps to represent what comedy is in a nutshell? Because it's a traditional art form that revolves around the slapstick, the physical humor of it. Like you could say Charlie Chaplin was a clown. Well,
Mm.
his face properly says he's a clown. But do you think that clowning is what the definition of comedy really is?
Oh, is it? I suppose in a really, 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 really basic level, I suppose you could call it clowning. Um, Although, yeah, because a lot of people poo-poo clowning, a lot of people
Yeah,
poo-poo comedy, but what they don't realize is that the clowning is extremely hard and comedy is extremely
yeah,
hard. So, to call it, yeah, clowning in its artistic form, not clowning in a sarcastic form, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
Mm.
And as we've got to this point in the interview and they've got to know you more, what upcoming projects are you excited for people to see, hear, watch, or purchase?
Oh gosh. Well, now. Do you know what? I'm not across anything, Tom, at the moment. I've lived in my little bubble. The only thing that I would suggest people listen to is a podcast called Tough Gig Comedy Podcast. God, it's got two brilliant people in it. Me and my husband, Eddie Brimson. And I suppose what else is going on? Edinburgh, but I haven't been to Edinburgh for years now because that's too expensive. But if you are going to go to Edinburgh, go and see the people that aren't mainstream names. Go and see alternative people, people that you wouldn't necessarily have heard of. Go and see those people because they need your money and they're funny. Mm.
Yeah. As Comic Relief once said, funny for money.
Hmm.
That should be Edinburgh's tagline. Edinburgh, funny, but it costs a lot of money. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. And do you think Edinburgh is still the pinnacle of what should be the comedy calendar, or do you think that because there's more festivals that are probably cheaper and closer to people, do you think that the festivals are becoming the head of the comedy calendar rather than a Pacific
Mm,
festival?
I think Edinburgh still has its place. I think it's certainly pricing itself out now. So a lot of performers still can't afford to go, which is kind of defeats the object of having a fringe festival, which is really annoying. But if you've never, as if you're a comic and you've never done Edinburgh, it's sort of like still the go-to thing that you have to go and do.
Yeah.
Um, but it is becoming a middle class, upper class kind of thing. And if you don't have the money, then you're priced out, really, which is a real shame for the audience and for the performers. So I think it may have lost a little bit of its edge because of the financial side of it.
Yeah.
But as a performer, it's still something that you would always want to go and do, I think. And other festivals, there's like McCuncliffe Festival, which is in May, I think. They're sort of slowly coming up, and that's really
Yeah.
good fun. And they it's small, it's over however many days, is it a week or two, is it, I don't know, but it's McCuncliffe is a great alternative to
Yeah.
Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Mm,
And then once you find out who's organised it, you think, wow, I didn't
mm,
realise that. It's in
mm,
the Widdicombe household.
mm-hmm.
But when I found that out, I thought, wow, that's a very talented family. Um, and I do think it's like Brighton the festival in Brighton. That's like quite huge, and that's what you see when you, from my aspect that don't go to the big festival to hear about them. It sounds like there's a lot more options. Do you think that's
Yeah.
what's good?
Mm,
Because it's like if the actor that really wants to go to Edinburgh can't go to Edinburgh, they might be able to go to Machynlleth, or they might be
yeah.
able to go to a local one
Yeah.
like Glasgow or Brighton
Mm.
or
Or
wherever,
Leicester
or
Festival.
Leicester. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That still needs a lot of promotion, I think. It's been going for years and years and
yeah.
years, but it still needs a lot of promo. But it'll get there, everything takes its time, doesn't it?
Yeah. And as we come towards the end of this interview, do you think that comedy is more accessible for people now than it's ever been, or do you think that there's still a good few barriers for people to enter into the world of comedy?
Mm, Anybody could do comedy. Is that what you mean? Any like for
Yeah, do
performing
you
or
think
for
that
the
it's easy
audience?
for people to say, "Oh, I want to start comedy," and they can break into it? Or do you think there's still barriers of someone saying, "I want to get into comedy, but I can't afford this, that, the other"?
I think anybody can do comedy if you're funny. I think, yeah, I think financially, if you work hard, like I did a couple of years of going to gigs, to performing gigs where I wasn't being paid, and it's just what you do, and I didn't have any money, but you just find a way of doing it. If you really want something bad enough, then you will find a way of doing it, and I think that's the key with comedy. Is was particularly when you're on telly and they go, "Oh, here's our new act, John Bishop," and you just think
Yeah,
John's been on the circuit for a million years,
yeah,
but the audience at home don't necessarily know all the hours that have gone into it. But
yeah,
you have to put those hours in, and if you really want to do it, then you'll do it.
yeah. And so, as we come towards the end of this slippery slope we call interview, without giving away your home address, where can people track you down online?
On Instagram, I am at Lou Conran, LouConran. On Facebook, I am at Lou Conran Comedian. I have a website, www.louconran.com. Please do join my mailing list.
There we go. And yes, mailing lists are all fun. They're not really. There's no mail that comes through your door either. Which is it should be called the emailer list. Really, that's what they
Yes, it
should be.
should be.
It should be because
Yeah.
it's in your emails. But I'll be here all week.
Okie
Uh,
dokes.
and so on that note, as I draw the humour that causes laughters galore. To say thank you for letting me interview you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. There'll be more interviews coming down that pipeline, which is not a pipe or a line. But thank you guys for watching. And remember, no, I've forgotten.